The following is a presentation of KSL Sports. First and 12. A total roundup into BYU football and the new look Big 12 Conference. Your hosts are Mitch Harper and Alex Kirry for KSL Sports.
Hour number 2 is off and running here on this first edition of First and 12. Mitch Harper, Alex Kirry with you. It's been a great show thus far. If you want to listen or miss any part of the program, you can subscribe to the show on podcast, KSLSports.com, the KSL Sports app. We've got you covered. Of course, you can hear Alex Unrivaled, the podcast there, Cougar Sports Saturday, Cougar Tracks. It's all there on the KSL Sports app. And, Alex, we're going to roll out every single week here in this segment power rankings.
Oh,
so,
yeah, man.
Listeners, scold us. You can tweet at us, X us, whatever you need to do. We're going to give you the weekly rankings. We started off here with week number 2.
The Big 12 Power Rankings Big Board. A weekly rank of all 12 programs from the elite to the bottom dwellers.
Recapping week 1 here in the Power Rankings, we're going to start things off at the top. I think there's more suspense as to who's at the bottom this week.
You know, it's not even suspense. It's more who Mitch wanted to slight this week. And what my favorite part is, too, is as the games are going now, knowing that, and this is where our brains are at now, right? Where you go, hey, when we're talking about this on First and 12, where are these rankings going to go? When you saw Baylor's performance or when you saw Texas Tech, you start to like turn into like the schoolmaster and you're like, interesting. You're tumbling. You're going down. Where are you going to end up on the big board? I don't know, but depending on what Mitch's and my level of feistiness is, if I don't like you and if I don't like your performance, I'm going to make you tumble down this list. And at week 1, I think you were very fair. We went through this list together, and I said, I feel okay about this first effort. And so let's start it off here with number 1.
The Texas Longhorns, the preseason favorite in the league. I thought what they did against Rice, it was a solid showing from Texas. Good start for them. Now the big showdowns this week against Alabama.
I let you get away with this one this week because I think Texas, as always, and look, this comes from a guy born in Austin, Texas. Okay,
you know,
I loved the burnt orange growing up. But I have a really hard time putting Texas at the top of anything, especially when you have a Kansas State team who is the Big 12, returning Big 12 champs, took care of business week 1. You said it. Look, Coach Kleiman is something different, right? And that Kansas State team in Manhattan, they do not care what anybody thinks about them, and that's a powerful thing. Where you are a forgotten, maybe best team in the conference, that's an interesting position to be in. It's a slight, it's a chip they always have on their shoulder. And so I'll let you get away this week with Texas being number 1 because they, quote-unquote, took care of business against a decent Rice school. It's like, you should beat Rice. You should have been the 66-13 game, all right? I mean, I can't tell you how many times growing up I saw that scoreline, right? Some version of that versus, and I know Rice is supposed to be better. I don't care. Quinn Ewers, I wanted to see a little bit more. It was a slow start, man.
That's the game, though, I believe, where you do hold back the playbook against Rice when you're Texas.
Go Bluebell vanilla-flavored ice cream on the old play.
Just vanilla,
all right.
And they still roll to a huge win over Rice.
Okay.
Number 2, Kansas State. You brought them up. Defending Big 12 champs. Yeah, they were dominant against SEMO. Will Howard, one of the better quarterbacks, I think, in this conference that gets slept on quite a bit. And, you know, K-State, I think that they've got an interesting game this week against Troy. They always have these hiccups against teams that you're not expecting. Troy was a 11-win team last year, but Kansas State has one of the best offensive lines in college football, and that was on display once again this weekend.
Oklahoma, not necessarily shooting up this one because they are a preseason ranked team, even though I thought that was a little bit much, but a 73-0 performance against Arkansas State, that's good enough to keep you right there at that third position. You're going to have to do quite a bit, Brent Venables, to be able to kind of push yourself above Kansas State and above Texas and not just watch other people lose around you. You've got to do something against big teams, and that's something that they had a hard time with. Everybody's got their eyes on Oklahoma because they went 6-7 last year and then are automatically on, ranked again. And you're kind of going, I don't necessarily know if that's how I'm supposed to feel about this team, but you know what? 73 points in week 1's not bad.
Still not sold, though, on the defense. I know it's a shutout, but Butch Jones' Arkansas State team, crazy to think how far he's fallen in the coaching world. They're terrible at Arkansas State right now. I will still wait and see on the Sooners defense going forward. But I will say, hey, Oklahoma, they've actually got, there's so much talk about how they don't have a non-conference Power 5 game. They actually do this weekend. They're going to play an ACC team in SMU.
I was like, where's he going with this? How dare you already bring in we told each other we weren't going to talk too much about conference alignment or punting today. And yeah, here we are. Our one Ryan Rico's name came up too much.
The third best conference cemented.
Hey, Dylan Gabriel, by the way, yesterday, 19 for 22 for 300 yards. His replacement, just in the beat up, Jackson Arnold threw 11 for 11 for 114 yards. They combined for a 30 for 33 performance. That's like, a combined no hitter in baseball kind of a thing. That was impressive by both those dudes.
5-star recruit. Arnold's the future. If Gabriel ever has a moment where he doesn't look great, step right in, Arnold. He's the future for the Sooners.
Okay. Number 4, TCU. You're okay putting them there even with the loss to Colorado? Because Colorado's so dang good, man.
Yeah, well, and I think that their offense, TCU's, the speed was still on display. Kendall Briles, the tempo. I like what they did on offense. There's just questions about the defense for TCU. But I think they deserve to be at 4. You shouldn't be punished for challenging yourself in non-conference. I always respect that, to take the risk of playing a team. I know it was Colorado. You think that should have never been a risk, but Coach Prime changed that thing overnight, so I'm okay with TCU at 4.
UCF at 5. That's an aggressive look. We both decide on these numbers at the end, and when we both sort of signed off on this one, it's an aggressive move, but certainly UCF, a really good performance. Gus Malzahn is not anybody to mess with coaching-wise. He's a big-time coach. They already feel like they're in a big-time place. They've played like that over the last decade. And so I think that's a team that could shock some people. And you saw some of these other folks that should have been performing, and they didn't. And so UCF takes that 5
They've got Power 5 size already. And I think that Gus Malzahn has, in this ramp-up phase over the past 21 months to get ready for this conference, they have built up their depth. And there was a reason that they were the preseason highest-ranked newcomer in the league. I think they've got the best overall depth out of the newcomers, and I think 5 is fair for them coming into week 1.
Number 6, Kansas. They make a little bit of a jump, but partly because of the lack of performance, maybe the teams that are now behind them. But Kansas was impressive week 1. Who knows what that really means? And again, Jalen Daniels is supposed to be the best player in the entire dang conference, and who knows how long he'll be out. But that's actually that's good news for Kansas, knowing that they're still performing.
The strength of their quarterback unit, I think, gives them the stability that no matter if Jalen Daniels is out, they can turn to Jason Bean and know they're still an operation that performs at a high level. Number 7, Oklahoma State. They won. It was a lackluster performance against Central Arkansas. Still kind of curious as to how they kind of fill things out with their offensive line. A lot of changes there, a lot of personnel overhaul with so many players leaving in the transfer portal. That wasn't the greatest start, but there wasn't many great performances from the league at large this week. So I'll go with Oklahoma State at 7, kind of just in the middle of the pack, and it's more of a kind of buying stock that Mike Gundy always will turn it around and kind of get the most out of his group.
Mitch writes these up, by the way, every week after we do this. He does a write-up. You can see what the power rankings are. This is a living list, and we're going to be going all season long. It's going to be interesting to see where everybody ends up and how this thing ends up re-ranking itself throughout the season. Texas Tech was a team that probably tumbled a few spots, obviously. Well, not obviously. They lost in double overtime at Wyoming. That's a team that should have taken care of business in week 1, and they've been high on a lot of people's boards for not a lot of reasons except for that Texas Tech typically is they're just sort of overlooked, I guess. And in this case, they overlooked Wyoming, and that's why they're going to tumble down the list.
It was a disappointing performance for Texas Tech because you wanted to see them, if they were truly a Big 12 title contender team, they were going to go in there and, maybe get a scare from Wyoming. I think people expected that. But to still take care of business and not have the mistakes. And they kind of shot themselves in the foot at large part. And so many missed field goals, too. And when the margins are so tight in this conference, you've got to have some strength at kicker. And because we saw that last year with TCU, how many close calls they had, they turned to the kicking game and were able to get a win.
Houston at 9 and then BYU at 10. Did they basically stay exactly around where people had them?
I think so. Maybe a little bit lower than I had them. I had them at 9 in the preseason, but I think you can say a win's a win. You got to shut out. The defensive stock rises up. Offensive trending down a little bit, but you like what Jay Hill's bringing to the defense.
Cincinnati 11. Iowa State, with a lot of guys who are going to be out because of the gambling allegations, and you're likely going to see those guys not just out. There might be some guys who lose their eligibility forever in college football after the NCAA has to make that decision on those guys. They're at 12, but a decent performance out of the gate. West Virginia, 13. Look at them climbing the board with a loss at State College there at Penn State. What does that mean number 14 is then, Mitch?
The Baylor Bears.
Hey, now.
I didn't think I'd be saying this. I was high on Baylor coming into the season, and look, I still think Dave Aranda could turn it around, but after losing to Texas State, that's Texas State's first ever Power 5 win. That's inexcusable. You can't have that happen at home. That is a missed opportunity out of the gate. So Baylor, someone's got to fit into that 14 spot. It's got to be you this week after losing to the fighting San Marcos Bobcats, Texas State. Come on now.
We do have a lot still to go around the corner. We are going to take our break here. The rest of this hour, we're going to look at the rest of the Big 12, a Big 12 Sound roundup. We also have our Four Corners whip around, see what everybody else here did regionally. And, man, you know what's going to be fun is kind of like penciling in some of these guys in the power rankings across this region when these other teams enter the Big 12. For Mitch Harper, Alex Kirry, we are going to be back. More to go right here. It is 1st and 12 right here on KSL News Radio and on the KSL Sports Zone. Stay with us. Wow!
What's up, boss? You believe now?
Of all the
hold on. Oh no. Do you believe that? Huh?
Who said I didn't believe before?
No. I read through that bull junk you wrote now. I read through that. I sifted through all
What did
that.
I write?
Yeah.
What did I write?
Oh no.
Can I ask my question?
Do you believe?
In what?
You don't believe.
I believe.
You just answered it. You don't believe. Next question. What's up, boss? You believe now?
Of all the
Everything that Prime says should be a T-shirt. Welcome back. It is 1st and 12. You believe now?
Do you think part of him says these lines for that purpose, for the T-shirt, for the apparel, for the branding?
Can you get a ski jacket made with "Do you believe now"?
We coming.
I know. And
right
now he can already put "we here." Maybe. I mean, man, I know it's early, but Coach Prime, not in the Big 12 yet. He will be next year, of course. This is kind of an interesting one here because TCU. National championship appearance last year, Big 12 regular season champs, and they lose to Colorado at home in one of the most entertaining games maybe of the entire college football season, certainly I think all year so far of this very, very early college football season. But 1st and 12, Alex Kirry, Mitch Harper, thanks for being with us on the KSL Sports Zone and KSL News Radio. Every Sunday morning, you're going to be able to get it. We'll get this thing for you and all packaged up, and you can download the podcast as well. Getting that fired up today. We're so excited for the show. One of our favorite things that we're able to do right now. You already heard a little bit of a taste to it, but it is our Big 12 Sound Roundup, and that's where we're going to start things off right here.
The Big 12 Sound Roundup.
Check 1, 2.
The best bites, cheap shots, and excuses from the week's post-game news conferences.
Let's go right back to Coach Prime here, a little bit more in a little bit longer form, but this is Coach Prime after the game, less fired up at the one single reporter who was not as nice to him, but this one was just kind of his reaction right after they had just defeated TCU. His son, Shadur Sanders, 510 yards, 4 touchdowns, no picks, but 38 for 47.
Impressive performance. They were outstanding, and Coach Prime clearly pretty excited.
Wonderful game, wonderful beginning, intriguing, passionate, purposeful. It was all of that. We had some guys that singled themselves out with their playing and their playing ability. A lot of guys you doubted. One of them from HBCU. I think he had 510 yards passing in a Power 5 football game. And he happened to be my son. And I'm proud of him tremendously. Defensively, we had some letdowns, but the guys came and made the plays when they needed. I think we broke a record. Everything we do seems like a record. 4 receivers with 100 yards. We didn't run the ball greatly, but we threw the heck out of the football. Savion, another back, played a great game. All the guys contributed, Dylan as well as Hankerson. The line did their thing. fought their butts off. We got to fix some things on defense, especially special teams, because I think we gave up 3 or 4 turnovers. We gave up the kickoff. We had a fumble. A couple other things happened in the first half. But hats off to the opposing team. They're coached greatly. I believe their head coach, I love him to life, what he did, turning the program around at SMU as well as here last year. Good man. I had a moment with him in the middle of the field when one of the guys were injured, just to let him know how much I appreciate him, how much I respect him for what he's accomplished, and I really look up to him. He's a good man, and his team was well coached today. Let's have some questions so I can go back and enjoy myself with my kids.
Can't remember his name, but good dude. So
Coach Prime's unique, man.
I know this is a 1st and 12, but I will say this is a first for me too. That's a press conference I've never seen the likes of before.
No.
I mean, it felt UFC-ish almost, right? I mean, not just the interaction with the reporters, Mitch, but it's also just like this whole attitude, the whole room. I mean, could you imagine? There's not a place in college football that people wanted to be more in that moment than was finding out what Coach Prime thought. Colorado is an absolute terrible program, and this guy, week 1, game 1, has made it relevant. Are they going to get some AP votes today, do you think?
No question. They should. I would honestly put them probably top 15.
Oh, my.
Because if you're doing the poll, tear it down, just start from scratch. That was one of the best wins of the week. And for the small sample size, if you just go based off 1 week, that was a great performance. And when you got top-end talent like they do, 5-star blue-chip athletes, that's a team that's going to be good. It's a little bit boomer bust with their offense, because Sean Lewis, that high tempo, can it last for 12 games? But what an impressive debut. And let me just say, Alex, I hope we're talking about this guy in the Big 12 next year, because
that he doesn't get blitzed
if he
already.
gets 10 wins, I mean, if any SEC opening happens and this guy gets 8 to 10 wins, I mean, look, getting a little bit ahead of ourselves, but you got to imagine he is going to be the guy that every coaching search is going to want to kick the tires on and find out if he's interested. I got to think he wants to still coach his son, Shador, who was outstanding with the 5'10" from an HBCU and tore it up in a P5 game.
Happy to be my son.
It was a unique press conference. I love that attitude and energy. He embodies the new Big 12. Brett Yormark had a press conference on Friday with TCU and Colorado administrators, and you can just tell the energy that Prime brings. It's kind of like what Yormark wants in this conference, where it appeals to the younger audience, because everything he says, it becomes viral. It becomes a TikTok. It becomes a Instagram reel. He's just that quotable, and that's what makes Prime in Colorado so fascinating.
One of the coaches who had some splaining to do after their first loss of the season, Joey McGuire, head coach of Texas Tech, explaining what happened with that loss in double overtime at Wyoming.
Came out, started really fast, and then we allowed them to get back in the game. Hats off to Wyoming for playing so hard, playing into overtime. You look in that second quarter, really the third quarter too. I mean, we just self-inflicted wounds. I said that at halftime to the guys. Too many penalties that continue drives. And, a lot of going into all week, we talked about, eliminating bad football. A lot of times in week 1, whenever you're sitting there looking, watching teams, watching tonight, you get some penalties that you don't want to have, and your timing's not where you want it to be. And, man, I thought we came out and we played really fast, played really hard. And, man, I don't know how we got out of whack. It's on me. We just got to figure it out, going into this next week.
That was Texas Tech coach Joey McGuire. The biggest, I guess you could say, loser of the week was Baylor, who lost to Texas State at home on the banks of the Brazos. Here's Dave Aranda after the loss.
I'm very disappointed with tonight, and it's a disappointed locker room, and just throughout camp, just talking about how many games are lost early in the season rather than won. And it's hard to talk about that, because I don't want that to be taken in any way, anything away from Texas State. I thought that the energy they played with and the penetration they got and the excitement that they played with was really strong, and they've got really great playmakers, and I thought they dialed stuff up and was able to hit things when they wanted them and got matchups and all of that. I say what I say because, the third downs that we got in that first drive or the first couple drives were, I think, however many third downs we had and then fourth downs we had and opportunities to get off the field. And then, however many to-goes we had, goal to goal. And, we have penalties where the ball's got moved back or we give the ball away. And so just all these opportunities that we had that we did not capitalize on. And I take responsibility for that. So much of it is we preach that and we try to be in position to not beat ourselves. And I just felt that I failed to do that. And I failed to put the team in the best position to do that. And
Dave Aranda explaining himself after that loss to Texas State down there in Waco. Maybe the worst loss of all of college football over the weekend in terms of upsets. Certainly, that's one that you got to take and you got to figure out what they're going to do. And by the way, Utah heads down to Waco next week. Speaking of Utah, we got our Four Corners whip around. We are going to come back and give you a little bit of an idea of what here regionally, all these other schools that are going to be coming to the Big 12, what they did over the weekend. We already chatted a little bit about, of course, Colorado, but more to go here regionally about what these teams are doing who are going to be in the Pac-12 this year and they're going to be moving over to the Big 12 next year. It is 1st and 12 right here on KSL News Radio and on the KSL Sports Zone. You can download the podcast wherever podcasts are found. Mitch Harper, Alex Kirry, every Sunday right here, giving you a wrap-up of all things Big 12 and give you a look ahead also in the conference. Stay right here on your program, 97.5 the KSL Sports Zone and 102.7 FM on KSL News Radio. Back around the corner, more to go.
The Four Corners Whip Around. Whip Around. We check on future Big 12 opponents and rivals from the Four Corners.
1st and 12, Mitch Harper, Alex Kirry, checking in on the Four Corners. That's right, the new members of the Big 12 that'll be joining August 2nd, 2024. So still a year away, but we're keeping tabs on these teams and their preparation for Big 12 play. They're all in the Pac-12. Effectively the last year of the Pac-12.
What are you talking about?
Only 2 teams left in the Pac.
You don't think they're going to build around that? Why can't look? Gloria Nevarez is in an interesting position right now in the Mountain West, right?
She is.
Where you can go. We will bring all of our teams to the Pac-12, and we'll call it the Pac-12. Why can't she? I mean, come on. It's already there. That brand is way bigger than Mountain West.
And you'd get the NCAA tournament units and the bowl money and the playoff share for 1 year. Might be the move.
Put me on the board. Let me make decisions like this, okay?
But the teams that are in the Pac-12 right now, 4 of them are going to be leaving for the Big 12 next year. That's Arizona, Arizona State, Colorado, who we've talked about a lot, and the Utah Utes here locally. Let's start off with the Utes, who just crushed Florida. I thought Florida looked like an FCS team compared to Utah. Utah had 8 starters out for the game. Everyone knew Cam Rising was banged up, and it was unlikely he was going to play. Bryson Barnes gets the start. Some of the other injuries, though, kind of a little bit more under the radar that were not as well documented, but Utah not phased. Florida played poor. Utah was outstanding as they beat Florida 24-11.
You know, the Utah game, we broke it down so much this week on the KSL Sports Zone, and obviously you can hear those breakdowns all throughout the rest of the week on our station because Utah getting ready for Baylor is going to be very interesting also. I think Utah fans are going, look, we wanted to figure out how we could sneak out of those first 3 games and somehow go 3-0 without Cam Rising possibly. From all I've heard, Mitch, and this is something that I got from somebody this week, is that Cam Rising was actually very close, and that he is, and we saw already, obviously, the stories that he's going to be working without limitations at practice this week. Maybe you keep him on the sidelines for week 2 because Baylor, I don't know how much pride they're going to have getting back into this thing, but I just don't know if they have the talent. Utah barely had a soul showing up of all of their all-conference, all-American possibilities, all these guys, and they still were able to embarrass Florida on at least the defensive side of things, which is where Baylor struggles. They can't freaking score against Texas State. And so if you think that there was a low scoring output by Florida last week, it's going to be a really low one by Baylor if they even get close to making that type of performance next week. But the Baylor Bear fan base is going to be scared out of their minds with the Utes coming to town.
Well, I think Utah's going to look at it from the standpoint of they want to get to that 14 playoff. Whittingham has said consistently this year that this is maybe one of the more talented teams ever in his tenure. If this was a 12-team playoff, maybe you do say with Cam Rising, let's just hold off a couple more weeks and then bring you back to full strength. But in the 14 playoff era, if you feel like you got a chance to make a run at that thing, you got to go all in, and I think you got to play Cam Rising next week down in Waco. Arizona State had a unusual game. I don't know if you stayed up late for that one. It didn't finish until about 2 a.m. local time. It was a Thursday night game that ended in the early hours of Friday. So it was, in a way, Big 12 after dark. They beat Southern Utah 24-21, the debut of Jaden Rashada as the quarterback for the Sun Devils. Look, they got a bowl ban moments before the season started.
That's a bummer
it felt like
for Kenny Dillingham, right?
It's a transition year for them. It's a tough situation. I don't expect much from ASU. They don't want to be in the Big 12, it seems like, but they're going to be. And I don't have many expectations from this group this season.
Look, Kenny Dillingham, I like his attitude, though. And, that delay just absolutely killed them. I mean, they were looking okay, but the delay, they came out so dadgum flat. This has implications, of course, too, because BYU, played or is playing SUU next week. And by the way, that's a good SUU team, and I think that they've kind of changed the culture there. I'm not going to try to act like this is,
good quarterback, though, Justin Miller.
I think Justin Miller is really good. And I'll tell you, too, they're going to come in on the back of this and go, look, they're going to watch that film and go, why can't we do all of those things that the folks did from Sam Houston to BYU? Why not? And you're not going to necessarily steal a win away, but a 24-21 outcome for SUU is as good as it gets for them. And ASU, it's a start. You know what I mean? It's a Kenny Dillingham era. They got to figure some things out. It's a real bummer, especially because he has to be punished for the sins of Herm Edwards.
Arizona, I thought, had a nice start. 38-3 win over Northern Arizona. Jaden DeLora, 285 yards. Jed Fish, when he took over in 2021, that was a total tear-down rebuild from the ground up, and I think every single year you're seeing growth. I mean, it's Northern Arizona, but year 3 of the Jed Fish build, I feel like it's a little bit ahead of schedule than where I envisioned with this program. I think they're trending up as they build for the Big 12.
I've been to these Pac-12 media days since Jed Fish came in his first year, and Scott Mitchell and I have always talked about how impressed we are with what that guy's done, with how little he had, right? What his ability is he can recruit better than most at a school that nobody wants to go to, but they are climbing the charts on that recruiting side of things. The Wildcats are absolutely where they need to be right now. We talked a little bit about TCU and that win, of course, that Colorado got over TCU. That was the big one over the weekend. But those, you got to be high on what these teams are doing. The ones that are coming in, Colorado's a pleasant surprise. Arizona State, they are what they are because of the problems that they've had in that program. Arizona's on the way up, and Utah could be the best of the entire group, top to bottom. I'm saying even of the new Big 12 and the old Big 12 all combined. Even Texas and Oklahoma in that conversation as well. I'll say
that's a take right there.
Why not? Why not?
Utah's got an identity that's consistent. That's one thing that the current Big 12 lacks. And you saw that with Baylor. You saw that with Texas Tech, where Utah, you know what you're getting week after week. And that was evident once again with Florida.
Next, wrapping things up with a look at the week ahead in the Big 12. The schedule will be opened, and we will be able to look and see what those top games are for next week. So stay right here. It is 1st and 12, 97.5 the KSL Sports Zone and KSL News Radio.
The week ahead. Matchups that have us the most excited about the week to come in the Big 12.
Week 1 is in the rear view. It's now time to look ahead to Week 2, and it's a loaded slate. We get into the thick of non-conference matchups in the Big 12 Conference. Starting off with an intriguing Friday night tilt. Illinois and Brett Bielema go to Kansas. We'll see what happens with Jalen Daniels in his back. ESPN2 game, Kansas and the Illini.
Looking forward to that one because that's actually two Power 5 teams. Do we call them Power 5 teams anymore? Power Conference teams, right? So, yeah, but
Illinois was a tough out in the Big Ten last year. They lost a lot of personnel, but that is going to be it's kind of both teams are similar in the sense where they're usually perennial bottom feeders are looking to level up in their respective leagues.
The most important ones to the folks, I think, here locally, of course, it's a Big 12 matchup and a future Big 12 opponent. Mm-hmm. Baylor and Utah. That's going to be your first one. That's a 10 a.m. kick right here at Mountain Time. Ute fans waking up early trying to figure out what's going on. But that's a fun one for folks who are going to make that trip down there. You've been down to Waco. I've been to Waco before. That's a cool little stadium. I didn't want to go full Florida on that one. It's a fun little stadium you have here. No, it's a
little stadium.
It is definitely smaller, but it's a cool atmosphere. I think they do a great job down there, Baylor.
Yeah, Utah and Baylor will be a very intriguing game to see, again, how Cam Rising, if he gives it a go, and also just the bounce back of Baylor. Do they let the season, kind of the wheels fall off potentially in week 2? Southern Utah plays BYU, 1 o'clock on KSL News Radio. It'll also be on ESPN+. So Cougar fans wanting to watch the game, you're going to have to sign up for ESPN Plus and stream that thing. 1 p.m. Cougars going to host the T-Birds. BYU's never lost to an FCS team. They've kind of been, in a way, FCS-proof, but at the same time, Southern Utah, as we talked about in the previous segment, gave Arizona State a run for their money in a comeback effort. So BYU just got to take care of business and make sure to have a little bit more explosive offense than they had last night against Sam Houston.
When a team like Southern Utah has back-to-back big power conference teams. I'm not to say like Arizona State or BYU are your Texas and Oklahomas, but that wears on an FCS team. Smaller guys typically, a coaching staff that absolutely sells out to try to get that win, and then they have to turn right back around and do the same thing. But that's what it is. The advantage is if you're a team like Southern Utah, you go, we have 0 to lose. In fact, we're making money on this thing, so it's a win-win for them. They're going back-to-back $1 million weekends, so not a bad gig for Southern Utah over this next one. But yeah, that's a 1 p.m. kick, middle of the day at LaVell Edwards Stadium, and looking forward to that one. Kansas State hosting Troy. That's another 10 a.m. one. Troy's offense has been pretty explosive over the years, and I do think that Kansas State just goes in there and just absolutely blows the doors off. I wouldn't expect anything different.
You think so?
Why not?
Troy was an 11-win team last year. Kansas State typically has some hiccups here, but no, I'm with you. I'm buying in to this K-State team, but I just think the history of K-State says they drop some random head-scratcher that you don't expect in non-conference, but 10 a.m. on FS1. Iowa State, Iowa. Iowa had...
Nobody playing in this game, by the way. It's like everybody, don't take any under or over. The gambling jokes are going to be in full effect because both teams are missing guys because the NCAA is slapping their hands for betting.
Will Vegas even have a line on this one?
You're not allowed. Not allowed anymore. I would imagine that the betting houses... I mean, this is something that happens. They will absolutely go after these kids if they are indeed, and that's what it looks like, is that they've been cheating the system somehow. And that's the wild thing about all this, is that both of these teams are going to be missing us. But top 25 Iowa team who just came off of a 24-14 win over Utah State at home.
Explosive too, and on offense in that first quarter they had 17 points. They got to get. They got to get like Iowa.
24 points explosive
for Iowa.
Come on,
if they have a pulse, that's a good thing for them because they got a lights out defense. Iowa State though, defensively, TJ Tampa, defensive back,
very good.
One of the best safeties in the Big 12. I love the back end of the Iowa State defense. So they're still stout on the defensive side.
Oklahoma SMU, the Mustangs coming into Norman to see how they can fare after a 73-point output by Oklahoma last week. SMU fresh off of going to the ACC and taking no money for the next 14 years or whatever it is, basically paying to be a member of a power conference. Why not?
Do you think that cuts into the Big 12, TCU, the footprint? Do you think they can have some maybe oxygen in that program by going to the ACC or just not having that money?
Having lived in that area, and even seeing SMU during years where they've been pretty good, SMU does not command, just because they're in Dallas, does not mean they have the Dallas market. TCU owns more of that. I think there will be something to that, and I hope that it does make football a little bit bigger in that sense. SMU is not TCU. It's certainly not Texas, Oklahoma, or any of those other teams.
West Virginia plays Duquesne at 4 p.m. Cincinnati at Pittsburgh, another old Big East game. Intriguing spot for Cincy. I would expect Pitt probably wins that one. And then the big one, Texas at Alabama, 5 p.m. Do the Longhorns pull the upset?
The answer is absolutely not.
Really? I'm picking it. I think Texas is going to get it done.
Mitch, I know you love the Big 12 in year one. I know you're wearing your Big 12 hat today, and this is 1st and 12. But this is dadgum Alabama. if this game were in Texas this year as opposed to the flop of last year, was it a 1-point game last year in Texas?
And Quinn Ewers got hurt, as we all know.
Right. I don't think that I just haven't seen it yet from Texas necessarily. I know that they got the job done last week. I don't think Alabama is this like weird underdog that people are making them right now. I don't like that. It's in Tuscaloosa, Bryant-Denny Stadium. I don't think that Texas is going to come out of this thing. They're gonna lose this thing by double digits. Ooh. I don't think it's going to be a 65-7 situation, but I do think it's going to be like a 31-21 type game for Alabama.
Another big game in the league. Texas Tech host Oregon, number 15. Any chance of a bounce back for the Red Raiders, you think?
Oregon is interesting because they have so much to prove right now, but that is a bad week to get Texas Tech because they are fired up. If they had taken care of business and they were just kind of quote-unquote rolling, Oregon is a good dang football team, but I don't know, McGuire and his guys, who knows? That loss last week might have them absolutely questioning kind of everything and then going in there and wanting to beat the world on this thing. But it is in Lubbock. I mean,
Tyler Shuckbull.
A rare trip for a team like Oregon to go to Texas Tech and Lubbock. And but I still think Oregon gets that one. We'll have a lot to talk about next week, obviously, with this one as well.
UCF at Boise on the blue. That's an intriguing one. Houston goes at Rice. Nichols at TCU. And then a future Big 12 matchup, Oklahoma State at Arizona State in the nightcap. A great week of Big 12 action. You'll hear BYU and Southern Utah extended pregame beginning at 9 and then kickoff at 1 o'clock.
All week long on the KSL Sports Zone on KSL News Radio. Mitch Harper, Alex Kirry on our respective stations, and then coming together every Sunday right here for 1st and 12. Mitch, good effort on this first
Great
one.
Stuff, Alex. Loved it.
Will you get me one of those Big 12 hats?
I will. I'll call up Brett.
See what's going. My boss, Brett Yormark. For Mitch Harper, Alex Kirry, thanks for being with us. Download the podcast 1st and 12 wherever you find your podcasts. And so for Mitch, I'm Alex. All sorts of help that we've gotten this week from a lot of people across the board. So we say thanks to them, and we'll be back again right around the corner, right here on 1st and 12.